So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try out some different techniques about how we can blend the pencils together. So I'm going to choose some harmonious colours to begin with from my set of pencils. Okay, so I've really chosen some warm colours. I know that I'm going to be drawing a pineapple later on, so I'm going to practice blending these warm colours together. So one thing is make sure they're really nice and sharp before you start. And then I'd like you to just take one colour and then we're going to try blending it into another colour. So tips for doing this is, as I've said already, make sure your pencil is nice and sharp. Then begin by holding the pencil quite far back and gently shading the area. So we're going to do a strip where we're going to try and blend gradually from yellow into orange as a practice. So hold it nice and far back. And do not press too heavily. I'm now going to start adding the orange on top, the same way, holding the pencil nice and far back, letting the edge of the lead rest on the paper. Okay, and you want to blend really gradually. You don't want to come in straight away pressing down really hard with the darker colour. You want to gradually add more and more layers until we start seeing that gradual change. So there's no quick way to do this. You have to take your time and blend slowly. Okay, now I've got my orange blending through into my mid-yellow. I'm going to add a lighter yellow at this end. Okay, so hopefully you can see here that I've managed to blend from orange through to yellow, and I'm trying to make it as gradual a transition as possible. And you can see that I'm working over and over the top, building up lots and lots of layers. It's then good to take a white pencil and really use the white pencil to make sure that all of your blending is really smooth. Okay, so there is my sample of gentle layering blending going from darker colour through to the lighter colour, from the orange to the yellow. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a technique called burnishing, which is when I am going to go from darker to lighter, but using the same colour and pressing more heavily and then more lightly in order to change and transition through different colours. Okay, now again, for the base, we start with just gradually filling the space. Okay, it may even be difficult for you to see this, but this is the very, very lightest part. And then I'm going to progress down to the darkest part here. So now that I've done a very, very light base layer, I'm going to start moving through and pressing a little heavier as I go down the page. But again, I'm still not pressing as hard as I possibly can. Again, I'm going to build up layers gradually, and that will give me a much smoother effect. Okay, so here I have blended from the darkest through to the lightest, and this is purely just from pencil pressure. Now what I'd like you to do is to try and combine these techniques in order to draw a 3D object. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and draw a sphere. So just a circular shape, a 3D circular shape. It would be a good idea for you to just find an image online just so you can see how the light will hit that object. And then we're going to begin by layering the colours and also experimenting with how we can add burnishing in to show the really dark areas. So I'm going to begin by drawing out my circle, and I'm going to use these warm colours that I selected earlier. So I'm going to draw my spherical shape. Okay, so just roughly mark out where it's going to go. Then my light is going to hit the object from this direction, and my shadow is going to fall on the circle on this direction. And I'm just going to look at a drawing of a sphere on my laptop so I can see what that might look like in terms of tone. And then I'm going to try and copy it with my colour pencil. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is actually fill the space with a mid-tone colour. So I'm going to fill the space with the orange. Another thing we can do when we're working with coloured pencils is called directional shading, which means that the way that we actually move the pencil is giving information about the shape that I'm drawing. So I'm trying to show that I'm drawing a sphere. So I'm actually going to move my pencil in curved lines so that I'm showing or helping to show the surface shape of the object. Okay, and where I want the light to hit the object from this top corner here, I'm going to leave that blank. Okay, so I've blocked in the overall shape. I've gradually shaded very lightly to block in the mid-tone, and I've begun pressing a little bit heavier where I know my shadow is going to be, and lighter where the highlights are going to be. And where the main highlight is, the brightest part, I've actually left that completely clear. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin layering up my other colours on top so that I can show the shadow gradually going through to the light. So I'm using this technique, but I'm trying to apply it to a 3D shape, which is why I'm doing this directional shading to help give that idea of the circle. So now I can start even using some darker colours to layer on top to show the shadows. Okay, then in my highlight, I can begin adding some white and gradually blending that out. And again, my directional shading is helping to create the sense of a spherical object. Okay, so here is, I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to say it's finished because I think you could carry on blending and layering for a long time before you were completely happy with it. But there is my spherical shape. So I've got a mixture of some burnishing down at the bottom, pressing heavier on this side, slightly lighter here, layering up the colours and trying to blend them as much as possible to create a smooth overall effect.